The Iron Giant from 1999. That movie, such a sad ending, but it's so good, and it's the animation overall is probably the best animation I've ever seen. Welcome back to the Junior Mints podcast. My name is Finn Lawler. I'm your host. The purpose of this podcast is to talk about things in life that may be strange or just weird or maybe just normal, But overall, this podcast is where I like to talk about things that are maybe a little different or like different perspectives on things. And, I'm aiming to talk to anybody about this, depending on the topic that I talk about, there's some... I forgot to turn off the fan when I recorded this, but whatever. Anyway, so today's topic, I figured, is I want to talk about movies again. And I know I've talked about movies before on this show, but I figured, let's do it again. But this time, I think the topic is going to be... I'm going to do a little bit of a comparing. Now, I know comparison is not really healthy for anybody, but I'm going to be comparing the movies then, so like early 2000s to 2010, to movies that were made more recently, like within the past year, like 2023, 2022, the past couple years. So, movies are a phenomenon that have taken the world by storm. They're one of the most revolutionary things of all time. I mean, come on, moving pictures? Pfft, absolutely. So, there are some classic movies that I absolutely loved as a kid, and frankly, I still like them now. Here are some examples. 1. The Iron Giant from 1999. That movie, such a sad ending, but it's so good, and it's the animation overall is probably the best animation I've ever seen. Like the animation nowadays, it's not terrible, but back then though, so good. Another movie, Speed Racer from 2008, starring, I think his name is Emile Hirsch. John Goodman's in it. Christina Ricci is in it. Susan Sarandon is in it. Speed Racer from 2008. Such a good movie. My dad and I quote it constantly, and it's such a good action-packed film, but it's also so goofy and like so over the top. It's amazing. Third example, Star Wars, 1997. Now, yes, I am referring to A New Hope, but I could sprinkle Revenge of the Sith in there because, it's my favorite Star Wars movie. Anyway, and then the last example I have here is the Adam West Batman movie from 1967, I think. Adam West, and just, again, I used to watch this movie so much as a kid, like the on-screen, like, pow, and blap, and, like, blah, blah, during, like, the fight scenes. So good. So freaking good. Now, these are only a few of the awesome movies that came out when I was a kid, before my time, quite frankly, because, I wasn't born in 1967. But another movie that I absolutely love, Captain America: Winter Soldier. It's my favorite Marvel movie of all time, followed by Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War. But that's another story. So the reason why the above mentioned movies were so good was because they had the storytelling element of the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey is so cool. It basically portrays the hero, or the main character in this case, getting from point A to point B and overcoming challenges. This element is what made those movies and so other movies awesome. Now, let's transition over to the movies that were made more recently in the last year. I'm not gonna lie, some of these movies were not the greatest. It could be because some of them were trying to push maybe an agenda of some sort that takes away from the story itself. But I'm not sure about y'all, but those movies, I don't know what they just didn't appeal to me. Like I would watch the trailer for one of them, and I'd be like, what is this movie? You know? Here are some examples. And before I get into it, I want to point out that the reason that these movies weren't as good to me was not because of the agenda that they were pushing. I just want to say that right now. So, that being mine, excuse me, let's dive into it. So, first one was Lightyear, the Buzz Lightyear movie that came out in 2022. I watched it. It was actually pretty good. Solid animation. I don't know if I would have preferred it to be 2D animation, but it was still good. Kind of slow, but Hero's Journey was there, but it wasn't like as fast paced. Like the movie was kind of like doing this. You know what I mean? The second movie was Wakanda Forever. Now, I'm not dissing any actresses. However, I watched it. It didn't really stay with me, you know? And yeah, it's very sad about Chadwick Boseman. Absolutely tragic to this day. But it's just not the same, you know? And hey, these are just my opinions, you know? It's not fact, just my opinion. And I am entitled to my opinion, just saying. Now the last one, Ant-Man Quantumania. Now, I watched this movie as I did the others. It was good. It was actually really good. Story could have been better, but it was still pretty good. It was still pretty solid. Paul Rudd, absolutely. Michael Douglas, I think is his name, also good. And yeah, the villains. If you guys haven't seen it yet, spoiler alert, but MODOK is in it, and I think MODOK is awesome. But the Conqueror, Kang the Conqueror, I'm not a fan. So I think as the newer movies came out, they again were lacking the hero's journey, and that's just what I've noticed. Like I know the writers were trying to put the hero's journey in there, and I respect that. But they could have done they could have done better, but they still tried. So kudos to them for trying. The stories were weaker in all the movies that I just mentioned. But hey, people are trying to get a new perspective on things. I get it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in terms of story, I will wrap this up by mentioning a film that I just watched that came out in 1987. You know what this movie is? It's a movie that so I'll give you some hints. Ready? It's a movie that is loved by all. Good actors and actresses. Came out in 1987, I think. And it's like it revolves around like royal and kingdoms and all that. It's not Monty Python. It's The Princess Bride. And actually, I watched it for the first time like last week. I can see why people like that movie so much, because the hero's journey's in it. It's not forcing some other thing, some agenda, whatever. And the characters were so solid. They were so good. So, and the hero's journey was in that movie too. Absolutely. I think I already mentioned that, but it was still good. So, but yeah, movies then, classic. Movies now, it's at this point it's a hit or miss. I have yet to see Across the Spider-Verse, and I heard that was really good. Same with, what's that movie called? Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3. I have yet to see that movie, but I heard it was also good. What else? I don't know. Movies these days are a hit or miss. But, it happens. It totally happens. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Junior Mints podcast. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like on this video, subscribe down below to my channel, go check out the other videos. I have been your host, Finn Lawler, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.